New poll shows a nearly three-way tie in the crowded Democratic 2020 field. The Monmouth University Polling Institute saying Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have risen to the top with 20% each, with former VP Joe Biden falling to 19%. Joining us now is Patrick Murray, director of the Monmouth University Polling Institute. Patrick, so great to have you on the show. The big takeaway for me in looking at these results was the fall from the latest poll, the last poll of Joe Biden, declining 13% right here. He was the front runner. What happened to Biden?
Yeah, I mean, it was across the board, and that was the one statistically significant finding we had in the poll. We've been tracking the Democratic nomination process since January, and this is the sixth time we've polled it nationally, doing it at the same time every time, and this is a big difference for Joe Biden. But it doesn't seem to be any specific thing. It just seems to be an erosion of support that we've been, of an issue that we've seen, I think, in our polling in the early states of Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, and Nevada, is that the Joe Biden support was never enthusiastic support, unlike for the other candidates. It was always a support that was built on, well, I guess he's the most electable, he's most likely to beat Trump. And if that starts washing away, then there's nothing else holding folks on to Joe Biden right now. And so I think we're in a topsy-turvy period is really what we're looking at.
Okay, Patrick, explain that more, what you mean by topsy-turvy, because we are still probably, 14 months from the actual election. A lot, presumably, obviously could change between now and then.
Right. So we have, the first contest in the Democratic primary in February in Iowa and New Hampshire. And we still are a ways from that. But what we're seeing right now is what we usually see when we hit around Labor Day, which is voters starting to pay attention. So we've gone through a process from the spring into the early summer where voters were just basically going on name recognition. And there's still a lot of that going on right now, but voters are now searching for who do I think is the best candidate for me, for the issues that I stand for, and also for beating Donald Trump. And maybe they're second guessing Joe Biden at this particular point. Doesn't mean this is written in stone. It doesn't mean that this is the trend, that it's going to continue in this direction. We can find other polls that show that this could be an outlier and just one drop in a bucket. But it does suggest that we are entering that period where voters are going to shift because they're paying more attention now.
Mm-hmm.
Sanders and Warren are two of the more liberal candidates in the field. In fact, Sanders, wow, with 20% in calling himself a Democratic socialist.
Right.
What does it say about the Democratic electorate that these are the candidates who are really, it is a three-way tie, but two of these candidates are, to some voters, I think, pretty extreme.
Right. Yes, Sanders and Warren are actually very different. Sanders is very clearly on the left. Warren is clearly on the left if you look at our policy issues, but I've actually been on the trail with these candidates and followed them and talked to their supporters in addition to doing the polling. What I found with Elizabeth Warren, who's been rising steadily in the polls since March, is that people walk away from her events and seeing her either saying, yes, she is that liberal warrior that I want, or saying, you know what, I think she's pragmatic. I know she's saying she wants Medicare for all, but she seems like somebody who will say, I'll take initial steps to get there. I won't go for all of it. So she is actually very successful in winning over some of those moderate voters who are looking for somebody who's going to be strong as a candidate, but not too far left. And she seems to be basically being everything to all voters in the Democratic Party, and I think that's part of her rise.
To that extent, Patrick, certainly after the last round of debates several weeks ago, Elizabeth Warren did have the most skillful performance. And so I'm just curious, when the last Monmouth poll was taken, and if this poll is affected by that last debate performance that we saw.
Yes, but as I said, she rose 5 points in our last poll from the last time we did it back in June. But she's been gaining a couple of points in every poll that we've done since March. So for her, it's every time she's out there in front of voters, she convinces a few more voters, and she gains. That's why I think that she has the most momentum right now, because unlike some others who have popped up and then fallen back, like Kamala Harris, who you see there at 8%, she was up higher at one point. Buttigieg, O'Rourke, they were both up higher at one point. Elizabeth Warren's growth has been steady and in the same direction for the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Any hope For Marianne Williamson, Beto O'Rourke, Castro, Yang, Buttigieg, who you just mentioned.
Right. That's why I think we're entering a period of volatility. And a lot of it will have to do with what happens in those early states. In Iowa and New Hampshire, does somebody exceed expectations? So right now there are a few candidates who could be in position to do that. Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang is another one who could potentially continue on in this process for a little longer. Some others, I think, probably are looking at the end of their candidacies fairly soon, just because I don't think they're going to get that bump.
I think the other concerning thing for Biden, Patrick, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that he lost support, it seems, among each different group that you polled. So it wasn't just one number that came down, but it seems to be across the board. So explain what are the groups that you polled and how significant the drops were.
Right. So he lost support among men and women. He lost support among white voters and voters of color. He lost support among young voters and older voters. I mean, every single group. He lost support among liberals. He lost support among moderates as well. And I think it's because the main selling point of his candidacy is electability and not on any particular issue stance. And he's had some stumbles recently. He's not anything huge, but I think they accumulate over time. And while I'm not sure whether it's fully a 13-point drop, I think there's evidence there that suggests that some of those electable voters, the voters who are thinking about electability, are now casting about and seeing if there might be another option out there who could be better for them.
Patrick Murray, director of the Monmouth University Polling Institute. Thanks so much for joining us on Cheddar Business today. We really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.